Welcome back to the Creating a Full App walkthrough. We left off last time with a button that takes us to the single blog screen, our customized header, and some indication that our stack nav is working. We're going to move a little bit faster here and go ahead and jump on in. The point of this video is to start getting some information and displaying it on the screen. Whether it looks pretty or not, it doesn't matter. I want to show you guys that the same information like business exchange, like the handshake between our client code and an REST API is going to be pretty much the same. If you recall from earlier in this curriculum, specifically our front end auth video, we had an API utility that extended our fetch utility, and we're actually going to be coding the exact same thing here in this video together. So I'm going to make a new file, or a new folder called utils in my source directory, a new file in here. We're going to call it api.ts, and it's going to have to be a .ts file, and you can't just hard code this in your all blogs TSX. Which will make sense in just a second. So we're going to export const JSON, and it's going to be an asynchronous function, and we're going to give it a generic type in brackets here. Remember, this did not work within TSX components, even if you wanted it to. No, I don't need that. It's going to be a type string. Then we're going to have a method we're going to have to specify that's going to be of type string. That's going to be a default value of get. And we're going to have an optional body in case we're making a put or post request, right? And this is going to be an arrow function that we're going to be exporting out. So you cannot do this type of typing in a TSX file. It only works in .ts files. And that was one of the caveats of React Native TypeScript using this template. So we need to generate our headers, and we're going to allow ourselves some space to worry about authentication later when it comes to React Native. Right now, all I want to do is give myself an easy way to make fetches in our application. Content type application JSON. Then we're going to try and catch some code here. Oops, nope, yep, had it right the first time. So we're going to catch the error if it occurs, and either we can console.log it and throw it. It doesn't really matter here. Let's throw this just like we coded it in our utility video. This is where we're going to say let our result equal await a fetch call to the URI provided, which will be a configuration object with the method provided, whatever headers the request needs, and if the body exists, we're going to do a json.stringify body. That way, if we're given one, it does so. From there, we're going to say if the results.ok is going to be a thing and a Boolean value of true, we should be able to allow ourselves to go ahead and convert that JSON response, so we can immediately begin using it in our code without having to worry about it. Otherwise, we'll return false in the instance it's not. Cool. Just some basic wiring up. We're going to come back here and actually code out some more logic in this guy later on in this series. But for now, we're going to keep it simple here and move on. I'm not seeing an error, so I don't know why this guy is not liking something, even though it looks correct to me. Well, we can always pretend it's fine and move on and see what happens, which is a always fun thing to do. Oh, hey, look at that. I had a period instead of a comma. As always, for those of you that called me out, nice. Let's get it. Anyway, let's import this into my all blogs component here, and we can see if we can get this guy to work. So I'll import it up top here, where we're going to import the JSON utility function from up1 directory, utils API. And we're going to have to use it using a piece of state. So before I even get there, I'm going to go ahead and type what my blog array is going to be. It's going to be an array of objects, and I know this because this is how I coded my API for my deployed blog. So you guys will have your own set of fields or your own columns that you have to worry about. I'm going to care about a title, ID, a body, a string. I had a first name that came back with my blog. It's a string. I did that via a join in my API, my REST API, and we have an underscore created column that's also going to be a JavaScript date. That way we can type what our array of blogs will be. So we can pass them down as props and be safely typed all through our application. So if I'm going to be messing with state, I need to have props, and I'm going to type those props as well. and I need to super props, and then I can access my this.state object, and I'm going to go ahead and get blogs as a blank array, and I need to do blogs. There we go. That's why I failed. I need to do blogs as my piece of state in there. So there we go. Now we should have our state safely typed. And as always, just like before, we're going to do an asynchronous component did mount, where we're going to do a try and catch. And this is where you guys are probably wondering, again, where the console log is, and it actually pops up in a Chrome browser. If you bring up your simulator, I don't know what the command is on iOS devices, but if you hit Control-M on Androids, you can do manual reloads. Debug remotely is the one you want, where it opens a Chrome window where you can use that console log. You can have live and hot reloading as well, which are kind of finicky, so when you mess with them, be wary that might throw some problems and not refresh as expected. So I just take the manual route of manually saving a file and then manually refreshing the page or the web app or the mobile app as I get things done. So instead of just console logging the error, we're going to give this a little bit better user experience and come back to our good old buddy, the alert component, the alert native component. So we're going to log the error and do an alert.alert. And you can customize your alert a lot here. We're going to give a basic message of you done messed up Aaron. And that'll be the alert message. Some good error handling for a good user experience. That way they know what's going on. And here's where I'm going to do my let blogs equal await JSON utility to my blogs route, which I have somewhere. It's my deployed blog that I got and coded in the curriculum up until this point. So if you've watched my authentication videos, you'll know where I got this from. And you should have your own deployed blog, hopefully, at this point. Okay, that's cool. So theoretically, now we have our state correctly set with our list of blogs, and we can attempt to display them on some kind of screen here. So for now, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to probably leave this container, and we're going to have to display the blogs somehow, right? I'm going to remove some of these other styling properties here. We'll leave that background color. That's actually fine for now. We're going to get rid of the centering. We're going to leave a flex of 1. I'm going to leave this view container here. And what I want to do is this.renderBlogs as a helper method. I have not coded one yet, so we're going to go ahead and do that right quick. This is going to return a this.state.blogs.map. And what this guy is going to do is map through each individual blog, and it's going to return for us. Let's just start with the text. Let's see if we can just get the basic text to pop up for a blog.title. If we can confirm this works, then we can begin expanding upon it with a component maybe that shows a bit more detailed card preview of each blog post. So I've saved the file, crossed my fingers, come back to the page. And, forgot to put our key on our text element. That's okay. But nevertheless, I have my 4 demo blog posts. Covalence's Life, a new code, Codewalker Strikes Back, and Return of the Codewalker. So get this. My client is making an API request, getting the response, and rendering it to the screen. This is awesome. And this is an important part when you're writing in React Native. You want a dynamic app. Every time my API has a new blog added to it, you as a user should not have to go to the Google Play Store or the Apple Store and update this app with the new blog post in it. It should automatically be able to handle a new blog post. That's why a lot of the time these guys are built on a very dynamic API and are meant to render dynamically from that API. Cool, so let's do some more refactoring here. We're going to make some kind of component finally, where we're going to call it our blog preview car.tsx. And this is where we're actually going to be utilizing our React native elements library. So import React from React. We're also going to probably and potentially want style sheet. We might be able to get away with it, but we'll see what might be required of us. But it's always a good one to bring in just in case. And we're going to see if we can't get away by using all of our elements from React native elements. And that documentation is pretty darn good to show you what all their props can do. So I'm also going to need my props interface here. And we'll call it props. And this is where I'm going to go ahead and type the blog prop that's been giving down to us. And I'm actually going to be lazy and just come back here and copy this little guy, actually. There we go. I was like, wait a minute, haven't I already written this at one point? There we go. So now I have my props typed. I don't think we're going to need state in this guy, but I'm going to go ahead and just get this little guy wired up and ready. Export default blog preview card extends react.component. We pass in props and state as types, which has to have a render and a return as usual. Okie dokie. And this is where we need to run our next test potentially. So if I wanted some kind of card to be passed down, or you know what, let's keep this simple. Why overcomplicate things, right? I'm fairly certain that React Native Elements actually does indeed provide its own text component. So while there is a React Native component for text, there's one from React Native Elements that kind of expands upon it and adds some extra props. And it allows us to do a text of heading. So you have your H1s through H4s available to you again. Nice. So that kind of brings us back to those browser-based components and how, because these things are so similar, it's very easy to get confused if you're not paying attention. So let's say this is going to be a text, and it's going to be of type H1. And it's not working because I forgot to import it up top here. There we go. Oh, forgot to write the class keyword. I was like, why is this all still red? It's going to be an H1 that will be this .props.blog .title. And I realized I kept the word blogs here plural when it should be singular blog. There we go. So now this should all be working as expected. So coming back to our all blogs component, let's import this card for use. Blog preview card from this directory, or up one directory, into components / blog preview card, since this is a screen that will display this component. So instead of just doing this text, let's see if we can get this to work. This will be our blog preview card. It'll be self-closing since it doesn't have any inner text. It needs a key, which I forgot last time, and I have an ID on my API response. And it expects a blog prop, so I have to make sure I'm passing a blog object in, and now I'm safely typed on all ends. So let's see what happens now with these files being saved and back on our sim here. Nice, we have these H1s displaying the text. So now we've taken an extra step back and passed down the blog into our blog preview card component. And so I know a few of these off the top of my head, but if you're wondering where I'm getting them from, there's actually a card component from React Native Elements. And I'll be using this little image card right here, actually. And its demo is going to be the one at the bottom here, where we have our card, some text, and a button all nested within a card. And you'll notice they have several different props you can customize to make these guys appear a certain way. So I'm going to see what I can code from memory, and let's crank this sucker out. So we're going to need that card component, we're going to need a button, we're going to want an icon, and we're going to want, I think that's it. No, it's like, we don't need the image tag, right? Because the card can accept an image source. So that's good to know. Okay, cool. So let's see what we can get going here. And you'll notice another problem here actually in a minute that I'm trying to show you guys. So we have our entire card component nesting our logic here, like all of our rendering. So right there in the card, and the opening card actually has what we want. So in the opening card, it actually has a title property. You'll notice it has a title style as well. And the title is actually going to be this.props.blog.title. And I'm going to do a little bit of ES6 destructuring, where I'm going to pull these properties off this.props.blog, just to shorthand some of the stuff inside of my render return here. So title will be the value of this.props.blog.title, and this title card is also going to have an image. And images are kind of strange here, where they're going to be out of our JSX or TSX, and it's going to be a configuration or an object that has a property of URI, and I'm going to be pasting a string of an image I have on my deployed blog. This is an asset that's on my deployed blog, and you might have your own picture that you have out there somewhere. You can also do a local file by doing a require and wrapping this string in parentheses, and that should work. Otherwise, you can use an online image by doing URI and the image pasted like this. So there also is, by the way, an image component in both React Native Elements and in React Native Vanilla. So it's also provided this source tag that follows the same structure. So I want you guys to think that this is how you do it with all, like a view that can take an image or something like that. This is just unique to the React Native card element. React Native Elements card, rather. There we go. So we wanted that text right there, and it looks like they hard-coded some style on it, some margin bottom. So I'm just going to copy and paste this, actually. So there's the hard-coded text. And I'm going to have this just say who wrote the blog. That's going to be first name and last name required for who wrote this blog. So I'm going to do, let's see, maybe a template literal in here where we say written by, and maybe a couple new lines where I'm going to say written by, you guessed it, first name, space, oh my goodness, last name. There we go. And beneath that text, we needed our button. And so honestly, I'm just going to go ahead and click this guy. Copy and paste it. It says guy that was going to, well, code as much as I can remember. So let us see. Their demo has this background color prop here, but I encountered this problem earlier where it didn't recognize this prop as something available on the button for React Native Elements. So I learned, unfortunately, the hard way that we had to move it down here as part of the button style. So I'm going to just hard code it as a property and value. And I'm going to give it my own color, possibly of AE3CD7. I think that's kind of like an 80s pink vaporwave color, if you can't tell the theme I'm going for here, right? And this icon should work. It's going to be an icon from React Native Elements, and you'll see what I mean there with those React Native vector icons we had to install and link way earlier in this demo. And as of right now, we're going to leave the on press off this button because I wanted to see how everything looks, right? Does it look good? And it looks like we didn't need the style sheet after all. What do you know? So let's remove that and save everything, refresh our page, and see what we run into now. Hey, look at that. We have our cards with the title of the blog up top, that image that I have written by the person who wrote it, but uh-oh, problem. I can't scroll. And that's one of the things about React Native. That's one of the first gotcha for new developers. You need to use something called a ScrollView component that's a native component. And if we find it here on their API somewhere, hopefully we can... how about we do a scroll, using a scroll view. So what's interesting about scroll views is that if you want any kind of content to scroll down the screen, it's something you must use. And it's unique in that you can hard code how big the scroll view is supposed to be height-wise, but it's actually better practice to have it sit in a container that provides its size for us. So we already have this view container that's flex 1. It's the entire size of our current screen. So we can actually just import the scroll view from React Native here. And because I've actually removed some of these imports, I'm going to clean up some imports. Or rather, because I've removed the usage of the components, I'm going to remove the imports. And I'm going to bring in the scroll view, and I'm going to allow this view flex1 container to be our scroll view size. So there's our scroll view. I'm going to wrap my render blogs in it like so. Save the file. I'm going to come back and refresh this page, and we now have a scrollable view content. So it doesn't know the size of these cards, and it doesn't really need to know. It just needs to know what area is available for scrolling, right? It needs to know what size is the container that I'm supposed to show you as I scroll through content. And that's why we have to provide a parent container that provides a size for the scroll view that allows us to render something within the scroll view and be able to actually use our finger to swipe up and down the screen to generate this. And just like before, our buttons go nowhere, and we're going to talk in the next video on how to make the button actually take us to the single blog page and do the same kind of logic. Get a single blog and display it. So see y'all then.